Reacher Season 3 wrapped a couple weeks ago on Amazon's streaming platform. The series has done great with viewers, and in the endless attempt to celebrate anything they do, Amazon inadvertently exposed the fact that if Reacher is their most successful returning series, the highly contentious Rings of Power and Wheel of Time are not. So, nice going there, fellas. I've heard a much wider range of opinions on Reacher Season 3 than I normally do from people out in the world, which piqued my curiosity. What I typically do with miniseries and shows is I watch the first episode, make a more general breakdown of context, storyline, characters, world-building, and themes than I typically do with movies, and leave with a basic prescription on whether it seems to be worth sticking with, or not unlike a pilot episode. With that knowledge in hand, you can make a more informed decision as to whether or not to tune in, and maybe you have something to keep an eye out for if you do. So that's what I'm up to today. If you're already a subscriber, love your face. If not, thanks for checking me out. Give it a thought to subscribing since YouTube changed around how they promote small channels last summer, and it's become a motherfucker to get anyone to watch anything when they aren't a subscriber. My videos didn't go from being suggested to an average of 25,000 viewers on release to no more than 250 people because I suddenly forgot how to make a video. But anyway. For context, the Jack Reacher book series by Lee Child is 30 novels deep. 2 of those books were made into movies starring Tom Cruise as the titular character, and each of the 3 Amazon seasons has focused on a single novel, which is nice. I'm not a fan of cherry-picking random elements from across the series when it comes to bringing something from print to screen. The books are episodic, so there isn't a need to start in the beginning if you want to read one, or to follow any kind of order for the movies and shows. That's not a knock on Lee Child, it's just a reality of episodic works. Sometimes you need to know what happened previously in a series to be properly informed, sometimes you don't. With something like James Bond or Jack Reacher, you just don't. The storyline in Season 3's first episode begins with Jack Reacher, a drifter with no earthly possessions, rolling up in a van and selling some vinyl records, which feels a bit head-scratching. Has he settled into a more materialistic consumerism lifestyle? A wimpy-looking kid tries to kidnap another wimpy-looking kid, and our guy risks life and limb to save him, which also feels a little head-scratching. Does he really care enough about a perfect stranger to make these kind of efforts? He chaperones the kid back to a super-rich family who are obviously criminals of some kind. The mise-en-scène keeps spotlighting guns, so I'm guessing gun-running operation. He's hired as a new bodyguard after an interview process that involves playing Russian roulette. Insert your own punchline regarding your boss and current vocation, which he overdoes to show how much he doesn't give a fuck, which again feels a bit head-scratching. Has he become prone to fatalistic despair? We then go back in time several days for the show to walk us through in painstaking detail an explanation for every real or imagined head-scratching moment, and establish that Reacher is infiltrating a drug-dealing operation. Swing and a miss on the gun running for Dr. Balthazar. And he's working in collaboration of some semi-rogue DEA agents trying to rescue a young female confidential informant. We end the episode in a serial rapist cellar with the CI we haven't been given a reason to care about's earring in the dirt, foreshadowing her possible demise. For characters, Alan Ritchson plays Jack Reacher. He's fit the role since day one and continues to do great with it. The concept of the character is that he's a force of nature with no baggage that can be exploited by the villains. They can't fuck with his home since he doesn't have one. They can't threaten his people since he's a lone wolf. He's big as a house, which Tom Cruise had to get across through force of personality in the 2 Reacher movies, but Ritchson can get across by being as big as a house. The idea is the villains have to kind of play hide and seek to have any hope of winning, because if they don't, Reacher will hammer them into the ground like John Henry laying that iron. Although this season they tried to throw some doubt on that concept by bringing in a henchman who dwarfs Ritchson. I mean, this guy is almost as big as I am, although I still have 6 inches on him, and I'm taller.
Is that a fact?
No, it's really not. Olivier Richters is a 7'2" bodybuilder, so this dude is a big motherfucker. Although his size isn't having the intended effect of creating doubt as to how our guy will get around being the smaller man for once, for 2 reasons. First of all, Reacher doesn't seem to have any concerns about working him over. So it's hard to worry over much when the protagonist doesn't flinch at least a little bit in the face of some danger. And second of all, guns exist. Ain't nobody too big to catch a bullet, and bullets fly around a good amount in this series. Generally speaking, the minor characters who come and go through the Reacher franchise have a clear plot function and a single mood they're trying to evoke. Sympathy, resentment, intimidation, bemusement, that sort of thing. After 1 episode, I don't like to make too many conclusions as to how anyone's doing so far, other than my first impression of the villains is they don't seem particularly menacing, and my first impression of the heroes is they aren't completely unlikable, although the comedic beats are a swing and a miss.
Funny to me. Boys?
Me too. Kinda funny.
Nope, not really that funny. For world building, I feel like the show wants to make this world more believable than they really need to. All movies and shows involve suspension of disbelief on some level, so whatever you present to the audience in the first act or episode sets the stage for that which can be reasonably expected in the rest of the story. If Superman can fly and shoot laser beams out of his eyes, okay, fine and good. The only rule here is you cannot present Superman with a problem later on that could be solved by the power of flight or ability to shoot laser beams, and he suddenly can't work it out. The world of Reacher exists in a typical action genre world, with more casual violence than real life. I mean, campus security at Bowdoin College by another name, worst hockey camp in the history of hockey or camps, are packing heat and trying to use lethal force in a high-speed pursuit for fuck's sake. But audiences are used to applying suspension of disbelief to movies and shows in the action genre. So why did the second half of the episode seem so desperate to provide explanations grounded in believability for nearly everything that happened in the first 20 minutes? Reacher has a van for this reason. Reacher has vinyl records for that reason. He's notching his gun so he knows where the live rounds and the blanks are chambered. Actually, that's a good explanation to make sense of the Russian roulette scene. But anyway, the gunshots look real for this reason. He knows how to hotwire a car for that reason. Here's where the phone in his boot came from, like that was a source of confusion for someone out there. The writers don't seem to trust that the audience will understand anything, or suspend any kind of disbelief for what is basically an action show with very mild elements of mystery. The other world-building item of note is the one that I believe to be responsible for the wide range of opinions I'm getting with the show this season, and that's the setting being in New England. When you come from a place, you have an intimate understanding of its culture. Things like accents, of which Massachusetts alone has 3 distinct ones, subtleties of what constitutes playful sarcasm versus dickish behavior, that sort of thing. I'll always give a pass on movies fucking up accents, though not everyone is as charitable as I.
Now you know. Your fucking mouth's closed.
I'll give a pass on the Dunkin' Donuts references, though I grow weary of them.
I mean, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. It costs 15 times the price.
I'm less inclined to give a pass on cultural norms.
We checked you out. More awards than Tom Brady.
Fuck that traitor.
No, we don't consider Brady a traitor. Anyone from the region that claims otherwise is just making a play for attention like a bitch-made sports media flunky, posturing like they grew up in the area, which is basically all of Boston sports media. Fuck your mouth, you pink hats. New England is salty as fuck and lives and breathes sarcasm, but it's like a mental game of tennis going back and forth until someone's cleverness allows them to score a point.
Fuck yourself.
I'm tired from fucking your wife.
How's your mother?
Good, she's tired from fucking my father.
Most other regions understand sarcasm like baseball. You stand there while I throw something at you, and don't retaliate or it'll make me sad. I see this episode trying to incorporate something of that cultural norm, but it doesn't get what we would consider to be cool in the game versus socially unacceptable. Various characters call out behaviors as rude or befitting an asshole when they just aren't.
He's rude.
You're a pain in the ass. You answer questions like an asshole. You remember what I said earlier about you being an asshole? You're doing it right now.
No, he really isn't. Lee Child is British. The writer who adapted the book into a script, Scott Sullivan, is from Kentucky, and the showrunner Nick Santora is from Queens. Fuck the Yankees. And they don't really get the culture of New England, which isn't a problem per se, but I do see why some of my people are like, yeah, this season can kiss my ass. For themes, it's too early to call out anything that may develop in the course of the narrative, but there are some basic concepts that seem to have become staples of the Reacher series. The first I already mentioned, the protagonist is a force of nature, and the bad guys need to stay hidden or I'll put them in the hurt locker. Secondly, there's going to be some kind of jumping back and forth in time. The first season jumped back to Reacher as a child. The second season had this badly conceived idea of constantly jumping back and forth between past and present to compare and contrast Reacher's investigative teams. And in this season's first episode, we only jumped back in time a few days, but it came as no surprise when we did. This indirectly overlaps with another general trend, which is the show seems to believe audiences will care about characters it hasn't spent any meaningful time with. In the first season, they killed off Reacher's brother in the opening seconds, then tried to build back an investment in him through those flashbacks. In the second season, the question of what befell Reacher's old team was supposed to loom large as a question for the audience, but by the time we saw enough of them on screen to readily connect a name with a face, we were long past caring. Here in the third season, they backstory a hard-luck confidential informant with a heart of gold being in danger, flash a picture of her to provide some kind of identity, and seem to think viewers will give a fuck. Let me spend some time with the character on screen, and I'll care about what dangers may befall them in this imaginary world. Until then, by every definition of the phrase, they just aren't real. Probably they'll try to flash back a reason to care about her after the fact, but we'll see. In conclusion, I feel like the show didn't trust the audience to accept what they were seeing without explaining it in far greater detail than was necessary, which was time misspent. If they're going to waste scenes obsessing over plot believability and holding hands for viewers, especially the flashbacks, it may get stale across 8 episodes. I didn't see any social messaging, which for Amazon Studios is friggin' unheard of in the past few years, and always a breath of fresh air, and in all likelihood no small part of the viewership numbers the show has produced thus far. The action scenes are fun in a gratuitous violent sort of way, and well shot, pun intended. I get why some of my people from New England rage quit on the show, but I don't think others need to care over much about how a region they don't live in is presented. Although they could have done some research on the subject, it's not like culture is something that takes forever to learn. Probably I'll watch the rest of season 3, though not a binge watch, since it's good but not great. So my prescription is to check it out if you like the action genre, and it doesn't cost you money to do so. Although one can only infer that the first episode is a representative sample for the rest of the season, and the whole thing won't suddenly go off the rails. That does happen. Anyway, that's my thought for the day. Like what you like, don't what you don't. It's all your call, Kemosabe.